So one of the foundational questions of morality is, how would you like it if this happened to you? And this is
the golden rule.
The golden rule, a hypothetical conditional. If this was being done to me, would I like it? And if the answer is no, then maybe I shouldn't do it to someone else. And that's just a basic, simple rule of morality. And I think it's worth having a bit of a recap as to what has already happened when it comes to, say, dumping hundreds of illegal immigrants in tiny villages, and whether that would be something you would appreciate. And if that's not the case, why are we doing it to the people of our own countries? And especially as this is a well-trodden path, we know what the result will be. So anyway, before we get into it, this is the final day to get Islander Too Much. Go and get it, or else you'll never be able to get it again. And we will be vastly appreciative, because of course we're still demonetized on this channel, thanks to YouTube, and help us keep the lights on and make sure we've got jobs tomorrow. Anyway, so back in 2015, there was a huge influx of quote-unquote refugees from Syria, quote-unquote. Now, be surprised to learn, most of the refugees weren't from Syria, most of them weren't from war zones, most of them, like 90+%, were young men, as in fighting-age young men who, if you're in a war... I mean, this is the thing about Ukraine. Ukraine were like, no, we're conscripting all of the young men to fight a war. Oh, I believe there's a real war going on then. What were the Ukrainian refugees? Women and children. Oh, real refugees. Got you. These were not refugees, right? The asylum seekers. So in small places like Sumter in Germany, this was probably the worst of it. As I said, village of 102 people. And the German government said, yeah, have 750 young men from foreign parts. Good luck. You're on your own, right? And, I mean, the mayor, it has a mayor, who literally every single person in the village knows personally, was just like, I thought this was a joke. His wife, the mayor said, assured him it must be a hoax. It certainly can't be true. She thought it was a joke, but it was not. It became a showcase of the extreme pressures bearing down on Germany as it scrambles to find shelter for what by the end of the year could be well over 1 million people seeking refuge from poverty or wars in Africa, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan and elsewhere. So, poverty and wars. Sorry, refuge from poverty. This is the kind of yellow journalism we had to deal with. It's just disgusting. You're not a refugee from poverty, ever. Ever. You cannot be a refugee from poverty.
Remember when they changed the definition so you could also be a refugee from oppression if you were gay in some country that has anti-gay laws? Well, come straight over, don't worry about it.
And we do that to this day. But it was something like 1.3 million in total that came.
Yeah, but imagine being in this village and all of a sudden a load of foreigners show up that outnumber you 7-1.
Yeah.
Can you call that village German anymore in any practical way?
Exactly.
No.
So what was the island off the coast of Italy that had it, Lampedusa or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whereas, literally, there's like 6,000 people on the island, 20,000 Africans turned up. It's like, oh, great. Thanks very much. You know, this is a horrific thing. And as you can see, like, you know, these are, like, this is an older community.
And this is 10 years ago as well. And it's interesting how the tactics have just remained the same. We saw it with Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, last year, where it's just, we've got a load of foreigners. We won't tell the local population. We'll just drop them there. Yeah. And you can deal with it. And
the reason they do this is there's fundamentally nothing these people can do, right? So if you... you've got 100 people there. Well, how much is 100 votes worth? Not that much. These people aren't going to be affecting national elections, are they? It's not their problem. So what can they physically drive out the refugees? No, they can't do that. So what they can do nothing. In fact, what can they do? Can they sell up and move? No, because the house prices plummet. Right, so they can't even sell up and move. So they're kind of prisoners there with 7-1 foreign men who are just standing around wondering why they're even here. Because they've got nothing to do.
They've never heard of Sumter.
There's no infrastructure there. They don't have an arcade or something. There's nothing there. So it's like, what are they doing? They're just existing.
You're just asking for trouble.
You are just asking for trouble, and that's the worst example where it's like 7-1. But it's still, there are other examples where it's just ridiculous. This is one from 2016, a small village called. Close to Hyde, which has got a population of 280, and so 88 asylum seekers are put in. Again, these are going to be older residents in these towns anyway. So if you put 90 nearly young men who are just knocking around with nothing to do, well, they end up causing trouble, right? And just listen to the tone, right? Everything about this was just, I hate it. I remember it very clearly, and it really annoys me, right? So they're like, 88 asylum seekers moved there last December. They moved there, did they? They just moved there, did they? No, they got dumped there on buses by the government, all right? But fewer than 60 remain, so a bunch of them just wandered off. Where did they go? Who knows? It's just a Schengen zone, bro. But they spend nearly 6 hours a day studying German in hopes that they could someday work in professional fields such as medicine and pharmaceuticals.
And I'm sure that was a decision they came to independently.
And I'm sure now they're all, 8 years later, 9 years later, I'm sure they're all now doctors and engineers and lawyers.
I mean, even if they are, we saw what happened with some of the German doctors last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Couldn't speak English very well,
Yeah.
became a Reddit atheist, committed a terrorist attack. Oh,
Yeah. How many hours a day and for how long do you have to study German to be able to speak German? I feel like a week, you've got 6 hours a day, you're going to have passable German, right? You'll be able to have 2 weeks, maybe a month. How many years does it take, right? But anyway, the point being, quote, the fears have been inflamed by the rise of a far-right Islamophobic party, is the AfD. Again, like, oh wow, something scary. No, it's the AfD.
They've been boogeyman for so long. It's insane how the rhetoric and the methods has just sustained itself for this long.
Exactly the same, and it's been nearly a decade.
Although I think that's mainly on the left. On the right, I think we've adapted somewhat to just shrug our shoulders and say, don't care.
Yeah, well, if it was genuinely like, okay, there's like goose stepping down the streets or something, and they're like, yeah, we're going to put them onto camps, I'd be like, okay, maybe not those guys. But the AfD are not like that. They're just normal. They're just a normal party. Like in any other world, in any other paradigm, the AfD would just be the normal conservative party. That's just it, right? So anyway, the AfD is like, I don't think Islam is compatible with the German constitution. No kidding. They say, and they also say, the migrants are criminals. A series of attacks last month, including 2 by asylum seekers, there we go, have also unnerved Germans, though polls show that most don't see a connection between the attacks and refugees. I'm sure they didn't back in 2016. But of course, there are loads of examples. Here's another one in Bautzen, where residents were battling with asylum seekers. Sorry, why were the asylum seekers battling residents? Why were they doing this? Right?
It must have been racism.
Yeah. An 18-year-old Moroccan showed report. Hang on, wait, what?
Yeah. Look at the way the BBC is framing this. None of the Germans who were probably attacked. No, just look at the poor diversity. Look at this young man who was only trying to flee from violence in his home country. Yeah. I'm sure
fleeing the war in Morocco.
It's just a complete coincidence that when he got there, suddenly it was violent.
Yeah. He's a grifter. He's a grifter. That's what he's there for. He's there to get German money. There's no war in Morocco. Look at the chain around his neck. Look at him. Look at his
he's so
shaved
impoverished.
eyebrow. Yeah, no, shut up. You're a grifter. You've come to get some free money. Understood. I don't even blame you. The people I blame, obviously young men are going to go try and adventure somewhere to get free money. The problem I blame is why are we giving it them? No, they should have been kicked out. But anyway, yeah, so Moroccan asylum seeker. And then you get the reaction from people because, of course, if you've got a lot of bored young men who don't respect your country laying around, and obviously there's a massive spike in crimes, particularly rapes. So people were pissed off, right? People were really pissed off.
Well, was it 2015 to 2016 New Year's in Cologne where the thousands of rapes took place?
But there was a tracker of just people had put pins in a map of Germany every time there had been a migrant rape. And my God, it was just everywhere, right? And that's just one kind of crime. Like, low-level crimes like robberies and beatings and stuff like that. It's murders, obviously. And so people are pissed off. Sorry, why have you brought in a bunch of young men who are just dangerous and foreign and weird and seem to be completely contemptuous of our culture? Why have you brought them here to victimize us? And it's like, well, we've got to protect their human rights, bro. And so people got angry, right? And so you get people attacking the migrant facility. So within a year, people just start 1,000 attacks in 2015 on migrant facilities, like what's happening in Ireland now, right? No, we're not going to have it. We're going to burn the things down. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting anyone should do anything like this, obviously. And so in the Southport riots, when, Keir Starmer, the few people they actually had a legitimate case legally against from the Southport riots are those ones who were trying to set fire to the hotels with people in them. Yeah, of course you're not allowed to do that. Of course you can't do that, Saying I don't approve of this to the police should not be enough to land you in jail, however, which goes to show you just how much of a trigger finger Keir Starmer had when it came to all of this. And the reason that I'm pointing this out is because we know this is totally predictable, right? It's an evil thing to do to utterly swamp a tiny ancient village with a bunch of foreign young men. Why are you doing this? This is a completely cruel thing to do to those people. And then once that starts to generate a kickback, it's obvious that these people, you're going to get violence break out between these two different groups. So you shouldn't have done this, right? This is a very obvious and well-trodden path.
And it's particularly tragic for Germany in a sense because they've been taught so much to hate their own history and think that they have been one of the great evils on the world stage. And obviously you can be very, very critical of the German government for the mid-century stuff and everything, and for the modern German government.
Oh yeah, I'm critical of it all.
as well, but I do not subscribe to the AJP Taylor theory that the German character is just inherently evil and must be suppressed at all costs. They're inherently...
Hang on. He doesn't say that. He says that
militaristic and Prussian.
Yeah, and that's not evil. And I think there is something to this, that essentially Napoleon is the bearer of liberalism, and the defeat of Napoleon essentially validates Prussianism, which I think does account for a lot of the modern German mindset.
Well, no, I won't disagree with you there, but
it's not that they're evil.
Obviously, it doesn't have to be evil. It doesn't have to be for negative consequences, you could say. So I do not think that the Germans, as a people, deserve this kind of thing. Well, but they've been taught in many ways that they do deserve it, which is part of the tragedy.
No, obviously not. And like I said, I lived in Germany for 8 years. Germans are lovely people. They just shouldn't be in charge of countries. They should be in charge of beer halls. And kitchens and things like this, right? They run a restaurant with military officials.
Car manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, the point being, where does this go, right? Where does it go when you start dumping a bunch of, well, frankly, potentially violent foreign men in tiny villages where people have got nothing for them and they can do nothing? Well, you end up arriving at this point. So 3 months ago, this is just a woman in The Guardian complaining that there's, the liberal order in Germany is dying and there's a massive clampdown, right? She says, I live in a small, quaint old town in northwest Germany. Okay, but why are you there? Bonita Dordel, right? She's an immigrant. Why are you there? She says, I attend because I'm an immigrant. She says, every day I attend 4 hours of German and integration lessons. I attend because I'm an immigrant. I'm South African and moved to Germany 3 months ago along with my German husband and our children. Fair enough. So she's got a reason to be there. She's married to a German, right? In these classes, which will take 700 hours to complete, are a requirement of my staying here for more than a year. Now that's interesting because we don't do anything to make people integrate, right? Like a million people came here last year. How many of them have to attend English lessons and integration lessons? Like, we are way less responsible than the German government is here. I mean, we can complain about Prussianism all we like, but at least they've got a plan, even if it's a horrible plan. At least they're doing...
Either way, the result is the same.
Sure, but, at least they're, managing it. Ours is completely unmanaged. So it's just we're crazy. But the point is, anyway, she carries on and says, well, look, as of last month, however, Germany, having been seen in recent years as a humanitarian beacon for its track record in welcoming asylum seekers and refugees, is tightening its borders. There we go. This is where we get to. We get to the point where even Germany, even woke liberal Germany is like, look, no, we just have to stop this, right? It comes against the massive backdrop of the gains of the AfD in state elections. It's hard not to see the border clampdown as a part of a strategy by Olaf Scholz's SPD to stop the AfD from taking over. Because this is just inevitable what happens. It's completely predictable. If you're going to swamp the country with a bunch of foreign migrants, you're going to get a nativist party that comes up and says, we will fix this because this is not how we have to live. And so oh no, think of the migrants, think of the liberal order. I learn alongside refugees, mainly from Syria and Ukraine, as well as other regular migrants like me from non-EU countries. Failure to pass the language test or complete the integration course can result in difficulties in extending temporary residence permits, obtaining permanent residency or German citizenship, and in some cases can have financial consequences, such as fines or a reduction in social benefits. Why don't we do any of this? Germany has had it bad for ages, and we don't do anything like this. So, okay, again, well-trodden path, there is something that can be done, right? And so she starts...
I think the most recent example of how we treat foreign criminals in this country that I've seen was the headline of a foreign drug dealer who we promised we wouldn't deport him to his country of origin because he promised that I'm only going to smoke weed from now on.
There we go.
All right then. That fixes everything. All the drugs you dealt, forgiven, as long as you only smoke weed.
See, that's the thing. We don't ask anything of these people. We don't. I know, it's ridiculous. I want Peter Hitchens' input on that.
I mean, when we refuse to deport people who have raped people in this country.
Well, my son doesn't like the nuggets over there.
Well, no, it's just that, well, if we send them back and he's known as a rapist, he might get lynched or arrested or something. Yeah. And we wouldn't want to punish rapists. That's not what we do in Britain.
Anyway, she says, commitment to these principles of compassion, inclusivity, and solidarity represents what is best about German identity. Being German means being woke, as far as she's concerned.
I mean, West German.
Yeah.
Not East German.
Yeah, no, the East Germans are definitely not woke. Yet the rise of racism and anti-immigrant rhetoric puts these very ideals in jeopardy. Who signed up to them? I didn't sign up to these ideals. These are not my ideals. These are your ideals. Screw your ideals, right? Our headmistress recently told our class, racism is everywhere and Germans are racist too. Thanks for indoctrinating the immigrants into hating the natives. If someone hears you've been here for 9 years and you still haven't learned the language, you have no chance. No, hang on.
Wait,
if you've been there for 9 years...
How have you managed in Germany without knowing the language for 9 years?
Exactly, but it's like, if you've been there for 9 years and you still can't speak German, then yeah, you're right, you have no chance. You probably don't deserve a chance. Come on, you're taking the piss.
If I was there for like 9 days and hadn't picked up a single word of German, I'd probably be like, I should probably put in a bit more effort.
Yeah. And it's not that hard. And they're actually, whenever you go to a foreign country, you try and speak the language. They're always happy that you're trying. You know, it's
not the French.
Apart from the French, but in like almost any other foreign country, people are happy that you at least made the attempt. You know,
and as an Englishman, you would expect that, I don't know, a language like German, Dutch, those kinds of languages, there's some crossover. So
a little bit, but it's not easy. I live in an English colony, so my German's terrible. But you know, I have an excuse.
Well, at least it's probably more easy for an Englishman to learn those kinds of languages than like if you try to learn Arabic.
Oh yeah, probably. But then she says, policing all land borders will come with racial profiling and potential human rights violations. God, I hope so. How does this sit with German values and culture, which includes a strong commitment to human rights, justice, and solidarity? Can German governments truly not find more effective ways to harness the country's collective knowledge and expertise to address the root causes of irregular migration? What are you asking for? Imperialism? Are we meant to go over and take over their countries and tell them how to live and make their governments... Like, that's the only other alternative. Oh, we're going to address the root causes. Right, so we've got to take them over and force them to live as we want them to live. Right, that's it. How's Afghanistan doing? Just out of interest. Anyway, so the point being, this is a very well-documented and predictable pattern, right? A bunch of young men come to your country illegally, lie to the people in charge, and the people in charge with their stupid, bleeding heart liberal beliefs go, yeah, come and live in these tiny villages, and they cause a load of trouble, create massive amounts of ethnic tensions, and eventually the state has to start clamping down on the borders and deporting people, or else a far-right party is going to get in charge. We're all well aware this is a very, very well-trodden thing. So, of course, England being 10 years behind everything else, we're going to do exactly that. Exactly to the dot, that goddamn thing. And it is insufferable, right? It is insufferable. It's all so totally predictable. And yet here we are, right? So this is Braintree in Essex, which is just a small English village which has a population of 707 people. And the Home Office is like, yeah, you know what? Boom, 800 migrants. That's what you need. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out just fine. We don't have any infrastructure or any amenities there or anything like that because it's a tiny little English village. But I'm sure all of this is going to go just brilliantly, right? So they have an RAF defence base there now. There's decommissioned, I assume, and the residents are like, okay, but now our houses have just plummeted in value, so you've just destroyed and this probably was quite a nice place and probably had quite expensive houses, and so now they can't even sell their houses and move, so now they feel trapped there, and they feel trapped in their own homes because of course these young men are just wandering the streets like lost souls or something. They've nothing to do, nowhere to go, and people are like, I don't want to go outside. I don't want to go out there and just like be surrounded by a bunch of weird foreign young men. Why would I want to be with who we know have totally conflicting values to our own? And a lot of these people are, of course, older. Melody and Alan Temperley, both 77, have lived next to the base for 3 decades, but say their spacious house has been rendered worthless because of these inhabitants. We're effectively trapped here and no one is listening to us. That's right, there is only 700 of you. You're not voting your way out of that. You know, your vote is not enough for that to matter. So essentially it would require someone like Rupert Lowe or Nigel Farage, Richard Tice at Reform to come out and say, wait a minute, I'm championing this cause. This could be any English village, and it might be every English village, and I'm not having it. They need to turn this into a national issue. Otherwise, the poor residents of Braintree have got nothing. They can't afford to leave, they can't afford to go out of their houses, and their vote is not enough for it to matter. So that's why this is such a cruel thing to be done to these poor people, who again have done nothing wrong and have done nothing to deserve any of this. I hate this so much, man. Like, I wouldn't take my dog out on my own to the lanes nearby because you're likely to meet groups of bored single young men hanging around. And these people feel, and this is the thing, I'm not the least bit racist. I'd have the same reservations if they were young Englishmen. But there's also another factor, and that's the cultural attitude towards women which prevails with some of them that cannot be ignored. Yes, they are not the same. We are different to them, and that is why... Okay, yeah, and I agree. I'd be annoyed if there were like large groups of young English boys and lads around. Like, what are you doing? Go... I don't know. What do they even do? Go get conscripted to fight for Ukraine. What are you doing here? But they are right that that would be a concern in itself. But it's even worse when it's a bunch of foreign men that you can't even communicate with, who definitely have suspect attitudes. And so this is scary to them. So her 3 teenage granddaughters, who are there with her, have meant that the family have had to install CCTV cameras, keep out signs along their private lanes, which were never necessary before. Good luck with the signs. It's difficult to see this place ever closing, and it's so frustrating because we warned of all the problems that it would bring when the idea was floated 2 years ago. Those problems are not hard to spot, wandering around Wethersfield and talking to its inhabitants. So they're getting exactly the same treatment, it's exactly the same issue, and we're going to get exactly the same response. And it's just like, God damn it, man. It could easily have just been avoided if they would just admit that this is the case.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.